Coach, another summer over. Do you think that your players and coaches are ready to go?
I do. It's been a long off season, as you can imagine, but it's been a productive off season. I think with Coach Gibbs coming in, that type of change really kick-started our entire program. New blood. He brings a certain level of professionalism and accountability that we needed, and it has really helped.
Coach, last year is obviously a disappointment. Is it your philosophy to kind of wash it, let that stay in last year, or are you using that every day in practice, or will you use it in practice to remind them about last year as far as using that to build upon?
We've touched on it, but when you go through that, the players know. They know what it was, and it's we mentioned it earlier. There's some great leadership at some key positions on this team that won't let guys forget about it. So when we start camp, you won't hear about 4 and 8. That's the last time it'll ever be discussed, and it's all about what we do in 2015.
If you don't mind going over again the timeline for picking the quarterback in fall camp, and as far as putting both Patrick and Davis through the paces and everything else, and when a starter possibly would be announced. Yeah,
it won't be too long. Having done this before as a coach and then been through quarterback competitions, I'd like to get it established as soon as possible. So, if we had 2 scrimmages somewhere around in that time period, see how they do in the scrimmages. And it's a high-stress situation for both those guys. They know what's at stake, and to come out there every day and compete, it'll just make them both better.
Offensively, as far as the fans out there, who are some players that they need to watch this season as far as potentially being impact players on your team?
Yeah, I think Reggie Davis is a guy which he's had the ability. It's just time for the light to turn on. He's when the ball's in his hands, he's really good, but he's got to get better at the other aspects of it. Jakeem Grant, we know what he can do. Had some moments of greatness, but disappears at times, and has to be more physical and more consistent. Devin Lauderdale came on at the end of last year, but same deal. Has to be more consistent in all aspects of his game. And then Dylan Cantrell is a guy who's really come on, worked really hard at his speed, worked really hard at his route running, and so I expect all those guys who played some last year but were a bit inconsistent to really step up.
Offensively as well, do you think the line can get DeAndre another 1,000 yards on the ground?
I hope so. I think it's an experienced group. I know they took a lot of pride in that benchmark on an otherwise down year. That was a positive for those guys and DeAndre. DeAndre's worked harder than he ever has, and so has that offensive line group. So as a unit, I expect them to be better, and hopefully those we can run the ball enough to do that.
Coach, the quarterback's best friend's a good running game, and last year you guys, no matter how the quarterbacks were playing, could run the ball almost at will. Is that something that maybe could carry over into this year, that maybe instead of throwing the ball, you might look at yourself as a run-first team if you're doing it really successfully?
Yeah, I hope so. I think, statistically, I'm not sure what we were percentage-wise, but a lot of our throws are extensions of run games, so it kind of gets misconstrued on us being a heavy pass to run team, because if we can run it with the backs we have in that offensive line, we want to be able to do that. So hopefully those numbers will even go up more, and we'll continue to improve in that area.
Defensively, with Coach Gibbs coming in, scheme-wise, what are some of the things that he's going to try to do as far as maybe go 4 down linemen, 3 down linemen, or just change it up all the time, or what are some of the things we'll see with that?
Yeah, he'll be multiple. I think more than anything, he'll simplify it for the players. He's a guy who'll hide looks, he'll change looks, but he wants guys to know what they're doing out there, to fly around and play hard and fight. And that's been his message since he's been here, is playing hard and not quitting and fighting and making it simple for the players.
Coach Smith had mentioned that he wants to rotate a high number of players on the defensive line to keep everybody fresh during the game. Do you think you'll be able to do that at more positions this year in addition to D-line?
No doubt. It's the most depth we've had since I've been here, and particularly at that defensive line, which last year Pete and Brandon were asked to play 80, 90 snaps a game, which just isn't fair in those positions. So we feel like our production will go up as the more bodies we can rotate through the defensive line.
What would constitute a successful season this year? Are you looking at sky's the limit, or just get into a bowl game and win another bowl game?
I think just massive improvement. I don't ever set a win total number, but those 2 areas have haunted us since I've been here, is the turnovers and penalties. And if we're bottom 3 in the entire country. If we get somewhere midway with the talent on this team, we'll be in a great shape.
Do you think you'll continue to use a large number of starters on special teams this year?
We will. We'll try to. We've really put emphasis on that with Coach Chev last year. I thought towards the end of the year especially, those guys started fitting in and making some really big plays in all phases. And so with the depth we have coming in, we'll definitely have our starters involved, and hopefully some of those young guys can step in and take reps off them if they have to.
Defensively, who were some of the players to watch this season?
Mike Alway, to me, jumps out. He's a guy who, last year, due to certain circumstances, didn't play probably as much as we should have played him. But he is very athletic. He's an engineering major, very fast, and will strike you. And so I think he's a guy who, around the Big 12, people are going to get to know very soon when you watch him play.
Are you happy with the quality of your senior leadership this year?
I am. It's a proud group. They've been down. They don't want their legacy to be what last year was. They want to go out and leave a legacy of their own, and so they've talked about that a lot. They've worked towards that this off season, and so it's a good senior class.
What would be the one thing right now that, if you could change from last year to this year, that would be the biggest difference maker in beating a team like TCU here this year? Yeah,
the turnover margin. I mean, you look at those games that we lost in that fashion. I mean, it was 5 turnovers, 4 turnovers, and not getting many, and that's the biggest stat in football. And when you're 120th in the country, you're not going to do very well and not going to win many games. And so that's by far what we have to get turned around.
Can you give us a sneak preview on the uniform front, since you do have input after all?
The fans will really like them this year. I'll just say that it'll be good looks, good clean looks, and fans will really enjoy what we have coming.